Fatty liver is one of the most misunderstood conditions because people assume it takes months or years to reverse. But the truth is, the liver is far more forgiving and far more capable of healing than most reefs. When I say fatty liver can begin improving in as little as 2 weeks, I'm not exaggerating or offering some miracle claim. I'm reminding you of how extraordinary this organ truly is. The liver is the only organ in the human body that can fully regrade itself, and when we stop assaulting it with the foods and habits that clog it with fat, it begins repairing immediately. It doesn't wait for the perfect diet, expensive supplements, or long-term detox plans. It responds the moment you remove the burden and give it the tool it needs to do its job. Most people spend their whole lives unaware that their constant tiredness, their stubborn belly fat, their brain fog, their poor digestion, and even their mood swings are quietly connected to the health of this one organ. Fatty liver sneaks up silently because the liver has no nerves to signal pain. By the time someone feels something is wrong, the liver is already overwhelmed. But the moment you stop feeding it what hurts it, you begin shifting the entire chemistry of healing inside you.
When you reduce the load of refined carbohydrates, bread, pasta, cereal, pastries, rice, pizza, chips, cookies, sugary snacks, the liver suddenly breaks free from the constant flood of glucose that was being converted into fat.
But the liver is not greedy.
It never wanted to store fat in the first place. It does so because it has no choice. When calories arrive faster than they can be processed, when the flood stops, the liver does something remarkable. It begins burning that fat for fuel. Within days, liver enzymes start improving. Inflammation goes down. Energy begins to rise. The fog in the mind starts to lift. People often think healing must be dramatic and painful, but liver healing is gentle and almost invisible on the surface. You don't feel the liver repairing itself, but you feel the results everywhere else. Clearer skin, lighter digestion, more stable blood sugar, and a sense of vitality that surprises people who have been dragging themselves through each day.
The reason it happens so quickly is that every single cell in your liver contains enzymes ready to detoxify, repair, filter, and regenerate the moment they are relieved of overload. The liver is never lazy. It is simply overworked in today's world. When you shift to foods that nourish instead of burden, fresh vegetables, low-sugar fruits, natural fats of butter and eggs, herbs of dandelion, ginger, and turmeric, the liver begins operating in its natural rhythm again. Even something as simple as starting your morning with warm lemon water sends a gentle message of stimulation to the liver, waking it up and encouraging detoxification. Bitter herbs like dandelion ignite the liver to release bile, and bile is the liver's soap. It breaks down fat, flushes toxins, and restores the balance that has been disturbed. Most people underestimate how quickly the body can change its internal chemistry. Blood sugar can shift in hours. Insulin levels can improve in a day. Digestive patterns change within a week. And fatty liver, though it sounds scary, is simply the liver storing more fat than it can handle. Fat stored can also be fat removed. In 2 weeks, the liver is not fully healed, but it is noticeably improved. Ultrasound measurements change, enzyme patterns shift, inflammation markers drop, and the person begins to feel their life returning. The magic is not in perfection, but in consistency. Even small reductions in glucose-heavy foods cause the liver to breathe again. When the pancreas stops screaming for more insulin all day long, the body moves out of crisis mode and into repair. When glucose is no longer overwhelming the system, the liver begins using stewed fat as energy. As fat breaks down, detox improves. As detox improves, hormones rebalance. As hormones rebalance, immunity strengthens. The domino effect of healing begins the moment you make the decision to stop harming the liver and start nurturing it.
People often assume liver repair requires medication, but the liver responds best to nature, bitter greens, lemon water, ginger, turmeric, fiber, rest, and an end to the sugar overload. These simple shifts are enough to awaken the liver built-in regeneration program. 2 weeks might sound too fast for such a dramatic condition, but it is not. It is simply the result of a marvelously designed organ finally being allowed to do what it was created to do. Your liver wants to heal. It has been trying to heal even while you were unknowingly hurting it. And the moment you step out of the way and give it what it needs, healing begins swiftly, quietly, and powerfully.
The liver is one of the most hard-working and underappreciated organs in the entire body because it rarely complains, yet it is responsible for handling almost everything you eat, drink, breathe, absorb, or even think. When I say everything entering or leaving the body must pass through the liver, I mean exactly that. It is the great filter, the great processor, and the great detoxifier sitting quietly under your ribs, orchestrating hundreds of chemical reactions every minute. It decides what stays and what goes, what gets broken down and what gets rebuilt. It receives the food you just ate, the medications you swallowed, the toxins in the air, the chemicals in your cleaning products, even the excess hormones your body produced. All of it arrives at the liver doorstep, and the liver must figure out what to do with it. No other organ is given this much responsibility, yet we treat the liver as if it only matters when something goes wrong. The truth is, the liver matters every second. The reason the liver is so crucial is because it acts as the body project manager. It organizes detoxification, metabolism, hormone balance, digestion, and energy production. Any food you eat lands in the stomach, is broken down in the gut, and then transported straight to the liver through the portal vein. Before the rest of the body even gets permission to use anything, the liver inspects it. It checks for toxins, pathogens, chemicals, and excesses, and then decides what form it should take and where it should go. If there is too much sugar, the liver must convert it into fat for storage. If there are toxins from processed foods or environmental exposure, the liver must neutralize them. If you take medication, the liver must break it down so your body can use it safely. If your hormones peak too high, the liver must filter out the excess. You can imagine the enormous pressure this creates when the modern diet is filled with processed carbohydrates, artificial ingredients, seed oils, additives, and sugar. What makes matters worse is that the liver cannot opt out. It does not get days off. It does not get to stop taking deliveries because it is overworked. Everything you eat goes directly to it. Everything your cells release as waste goes back to it. And everything toxic inside you waits for the liver to clean it up. When the liver becomes congested or overloaded, the entire system slows down. Digestion becomes sluggish. Hormones become imbalanced. Energy dips, weight accumulates in the midsection, and toxins begin circulating through the bloodstream because the liver cannot process them fast enough. The person may not feel pain, but they feel fatigue, irritability, bloating, cravings, brain fog, and a sense that something is off. The liver is whispering, not screaming, but the effects ripple through the whole body. When people begin supporting liver function, they are often shocked at how quickly they feel better because the liver responds immediately to relief. When you reduce processed foods, lower sugar intake, drink more water, increase greens, and introduce healing herbs like dandelion, ginger, lemon, and turmeric, the liver suddenly has room to breathe. It clears toxins faster, balances hormones more efficiently, and manages energy production with far less struggle. As detox improves, skin clears. As insulin stabilizes, cravings reduce. As bile flow increases, digestion becomes smoother and lighter. It is all interconnected because the liver sits at the center of the body internal network. When you understand the liver role as the gatekeeper of the entire system, you begin to feel that supporting your liver is not optional. It is foundational.
Improvement in health, better weight, clearer mind, stronger metabolism, healthier digestion starts with a liver that is no longer drowning in the workload we have unknowingly placed on it.
Never in human history have we consumed the amount of carbohydrates we do today, and the liver is the organ paying the price for it. Walk into any supermarket and you'll see entire aisles dedicated to bread, pastries, cereals, pasta, crackers, cookies, sugary snacks, chips, juices, and ready-made meals loaded with starch and sugar. These foods are no longer occasional treats. They've become the foundation of the modern diet. The problem is that every one of these carbohydrate-rich foods breaks down into glucose, and that glucose must pass through the liver before it can be used by the body. When the flow is moderate, the liver handles it beautifully. But today, the liver is drowning in a constant stream of glucose far beyond what it was designed to manage. This overload forces the liver into fat storage mode, creating the perfect environment for fatty liver disease to develop silently without symptoms. Carbohydrates are not the enemy when eaten as nature intended in fruits, vegetables, and whole foods where fiber slows the release of sugar. The real danger comes from refined, processed, concentrated carbohydrates that flood the bloodstream with glucose in minutes. The liver is left with no choice but to store the excess as fat. When this cycle repeats day after day, meal after meal, the liver begins accumulating fat inside its cells. Over time, the cells swell, inflammation rises, and detoxification becomes impaired. The person may feel tired, heavy, foggy, bloated, or constantly hungry. But they rarely, the sort is the silent overworking of their liver. Most people blame their age or slow metabolism, when in reality their liver is simply overloaded and begging for relief. Another problem with high carbohydrate diets is the way they manipulate insulin. Every time you eat a carbohydrate-heavy meal, bread, rice, cereal, pasta, pastries, pizza, the pancreas must produce insulin to push the glucose into cells. Insulin is necessary, but when constantly elevated, it creates chaos. Chronic high insulin levels promote fat storage, increase inflammation, contribute to hormone imbalances, trigger cravings for more sugar, and exhaust the pancreas. The liver becomes the backup storage facility for all this excess energy, turning into a warehouse of fat instead of a powerhouse of detox. This is why so many people develop fatty liver even without drinking alcohol. It's not the wine or the beer doing the damage, it's the bread, the noodles, the sweets, the chips, the sugary drinks, and the constant snacking. The tragedy is that many people are unaware their everyday foods are quietly sabotaging their liver. A bowl of cereal with milk in the morning, a sandwich at lunch, a pasta dinner, a few snacks in between. This seems normal, but it overloads the liver with more glucose in a day than generations before us consumed in a week. And said, okay, we'll give you 10 days. And I reckon that's a really good test. Let's just try it. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, the Bible says, prove all things. That's a challenge. Prove all things and hold fast. Excusez-moi. These foods are cheap, convenient, and everywhere. Most people never question them. But the liver feels every bite, every spike, every flood of glucose. It doesn't yell, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't give warning signals. Instead, it slowly fills with fat until it becomes sluggish and overburdened. And yet the hopeful part is that the moment you remove these heavy glucose loads, the liver begins repairing. It doesn't need years, it needs a break. Reducing refined carbohydrates allows the liver to clear out fat, restore detox pathways, and regain its natural rhythm. In a world addicted to sugar and starch, giving your liver that relief is one of the greatest acts of healing you can give your body. When you understand that all carbohydrates, no matter where they come from, eventually break down into glucose, you begin to see why the liver becomes overwhelmed so easily. Every slice of bread, every bowl of pasta, every plate of rice, every pastry, every sugary drink, even the so-called healthy granola bars or cereals, all arrive in the bloodstream as glucose. And the liver has to handle every bit of it. But the liver can only store a small amount of glucose as glycogen. Once that storage tank is full, the liver must convert the excess into fat. It doesn't want to. It's not designed to be a fat warehouse, but it does it because it has no other choice. When this happens occasionally, the liver manages. But when this happens multiple times a day, every day for years, the liver begins to swell with fat. The fat sits inside the liver cells like tiny droplets, building on slowly until the whole organ becomes enlarged, inflamed, and sluggish. This is the beginning of fatty liver disease, and most people are living with it without it knowing. What makes this situation even more concerning is that modern carbohydrate-heavy diets don't give the liver a break. The constant snacking culture means the liver rarely has time to burn fat because it's always processing new glucose. Breakfast cereal, mid-morning biscuits, lunch sandwiches, afternoon tea with something sweet, dinner with rice or pasta, then late-night snacks. The liver never gets a rest. The bloodstream never gets a moment without glucose, and insulin is constantly elevated, forcing more and more of that glucose into storage. Most people don't feel pain because the liver doesn't have nerves. It suffers silently, it stores quietly, and it deteriorates invisibly. The tragedy is that people often think they are eating code because these foods are so common, cheap, and socially accepted. It doesn't feel like overeating to have a bowl of rice or a slice of pizza, but from the liver perspective, every one of those meals is another avalanche of glucose. Even so-called healthy carbs of white rice, whole grain bread, and breakfast cereals act the same way once digested.
They might look different on the plate, but chemically they arrive at the liver as the same glucose molecule. The liver doesn't care if the glucose came from a croissant or a bowl of oatmeal. It still must deal with it. Inside the cell, that glucose enters a 20-step pathway just to produce 2 little units of energy. The rest must be pushed into the mitochondria, the powerhouse, where another 8-step cycle produces 36 units of energy. But when there is too much glucose, the system becomes overwhelmed. The mitochondria can't keep up, and the liver is left storing the excess as fat. And that fat, once stored, doesn't just sit quietly. It creates inflammation, it slows detoxification, it affects hormone balance, it interferes with digestion, it contributes to weight gain, fatigue, brain fog, and blood sugar imbalances. The person may feel like their metabolism is swelling with age, but the real truth is that their liver is struggling under a workload it was never designed to handle. The hopeful part is that the moment you stop overwhelming the liver with excessive glucose, it begins repairing. The fat inside the liver starts breaking down, detox pathways open again, energy production improves, the fog lifts. Even within days, people feel lighter and more awake because the liver finally has space to do its job. The key is not perfection, but relief. Reducing carbohydrate overload gives the liver the chance to reverse years of silent damage.
And because the liver is a regenerative organ, it responds quickly and powerfully once you stop drowning it in glucose on a high carbohydrate diet. The pancreas becomes one of the most overworked organs in the entire body because every time you eat a carbohydrate-rich food, your blood sugar rises, and the pancreas must immediately respond by releasing insulin. Insulin is the hormone that unlocks the door of your cells, allowing glucose to enter and be used for energy. This is a natural and necessary process, but the human body was never designed for insulin spikes all day long. In traditional diets, people ate simple whole foods, fewer meals, and far less refined carbohydrates. The pancreas had long periods of rest between meals, and insulin levels stayed steady. Today, the opposite is happening. Many people start their day with a carbohydrate hit: waffles, bread, cereal, tea with sugar, and the pancreas releases insulin. Then a mid-morning snack triggers another release. Lunch with rice, pasta, or bread triggers another. Afternoon biscuits, a sweet drink, or a packaged snack triggers another. Dinner often includes more carbs, and then a late-night treat pushes insulins higher again. The pancreas is shouted at all day long for more insulin, more insulin, more insulin. This constant demand wears the pancreas down. It becomes exhausted from trying to regulate blood sugar spikes that come every couple of hours. Over time, the cells become less responsive to insulin because they are constantly bathed in it. This is the beginning of insulin resistance. The cells start ignoring insulin message, so the pancreas thinks it needs to produce even more. Blood sugar rises higher and stays elevated longer, creating a cycle of cravings, fatigue, irritability, and weight gain on the abdomen. People often blame themselves for having no willpower, but it's not a failure of discipline. The biochemistry of a body stuck in a high insulin state. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. When it is elevated, the body cannot burn fat efficiently. Instead, it locks fat into the cells, especially in the liver and belly area. Meanwhile, the constant high insulin levels send chaotic signals through the entire body. Hormones become imbalanced, inflammation rises, energy drops, the liver becomes overloaded because it must store the excess glucose as fat. The cells and the muscles begin resisting insulin even more, and because the brain runs on a steady supply of glucose, the person begins to experience intense cravings the moment their blood sugar dips. They reach for more carbohydrates to feel stable again, not realizing that the very foods giving short-term relief are also causing long-term harm. This cycle continues for years until a person develops full-blown insulin resistance, prediabetes, fatty liver, or type 2 diabetes. But the pancreas has a remarkable ability to recover when given a break. When you shift away from processed carbohydrates and sugar, the pancreas no longer has to pump out insulin every couple of hours. Blood sugar begins to stabilize. Insulin levels drop, the cells become receptive again, and insulin sensitivity improves. Even just a few days of reducing carbohydrates can calm the entire system. People often report fewer cravings, more steady energy, clearer thinking, and a surprising feeling of calm once insulin stops spiking constantly. Weight begins to shift naturally because the body can finally access Earth's fat for fuel. It's never too late to give the pancreas relief by lowering the carbohydrate load and eating foods that don't spike insulin, such as healthy fats, proteins, vegetables, herbs, and fiber-rich meals. You allow your pancreas to rest, and when it rests, it repairs. The entire metabolic system begins to realign. The cycle of chaos begins to reverse, and the body returns to a rhythm that feels natural, steady, and energizing. For years, we've been told that foods like butter, cream, eggs, and cheese are the villains behind high cholesterol, and people have avoided them out of fear that they would harm their hearts or clog their arteries. But what most don't realize is that the real troublemaker has never been natural fats. It's the excessive carbohydrates and sugars that quietly push the liver into producing more cholesterol. When the liver is overwhelmed with glucose from bread, pasta, pastries, cereals, sugary snacks, and processed foods, it must convert that glucose into fat. As this fat accumulates inside the liver, inflammation rises and the liver begins producing more cholesterol, a part of its repair process. So a person sees high cholesterol on their blood test and assumes it came from the butter on their toast, when in reality it came from the toast itself. Natural fats were never the problem. They don't spike insulin, they don't flood the liver with glucose, and they don't trigger the inflammatory pathways that refined carbohydrates do. People who shift away from high carbohydrate diets often watch their cholesterol levels naturally normalize, even while eating the very foods they were told to avoid. I've seen people add eggs back into their breakfast, replace margarine with real butter, enjoy cream in their cooking, and still watch their blood lipids improve. Why? Because cholesterol is not simply a dietary substance, it is a molecule the body makes in response to healing, inflammation, and energy balance. When the liver is stressed by sugar, it produces cholesterol as part of the repair mechanism. When the liver is soothed with real, nourishing foods, the need for this excess production reduces. It's the carbohydrates causing the river of glucose, the insulin surges, the fat storage, and the inflammation, not the natural fats that humans have eaten for thousands of years. The demonization of natural fats has led to a tragic shift in the modern diet. People replaced butter with processed spreads, replaced eggs with cereals, replaced cream with sugary yogurt, and replaced traditional meals with low-fat, high-sugar alternatives. And what happened? Obesity skyrocketed, fatty liver became common in children, diabetes rose to epidemic levels, and heart disease continued to increase. When you remove healthy fats, the body becomes hungrier, blood sugar becomes unstable, and cravings intensify. Natural fats calm the system, stabilize hormones, nourish the brain, and provide long-lasting energy. But when you base meals on carbohydrates, the body swings between spikes and crashes, and the liver becomes a storage facility instead of a detoxifying organ. What surprises many people is that cholesterol is essential for life. It repairs tissues, builds hormones, protects nerve cells, and supports every cell membrane. When the liver is unhealthy, cholesterol becomes unbalanced. But when the liver is nourished and relieved of glucose overload, cholesterol naturally finds its equilibrium again. This is why people on low-carb whole food diets often see improvements in their LDL, an increase in protective HDL, and a drop in triglycerides without medication, without extreme diets, and without cutting out natural fats. The moment you reduce or immerse carbohydrate intake, the pancreas stops shouting for insulin, the liver stops converting excess glucose into fat, and inflammation begins to subside. As the liver heals, cholesterol levels follow. It's not about avoiding butter or fearing eggs. It's about giving the liver a chance to function the way it was designed to. When the liver is no longer drowning in sugar, it doesn't need to produce excess cholesterol. It calms down, balances itself, and quietly resets the entire metabolic system. The body thrives when given real food, and the cholesterol myth begins to unravel the moment you stop blaming natural fats and start addressing the true cause hidden in processed carbohydrates. Cancer cells behave very differently from normal cells, and one of the most striking differences is how desperately they rely on glucose. A normal healthy cell can switch between different fuel sources, using glucose when it's available, fat when needed, and even ketones during fasting. But cancer cells are metabolically damaged. They are greedy, inefficient, and chaotic. They consume glucose at up to 15 times the rate of a normal cell because they cannot produce energy efficiently. They depend almost entirely on sugar. This is why the moment glucose levels drop, cancer cells begin to weaken. And when you remove the constant supply of glucose that comes from a high carbohydrate diet, something remarkable begins to happen inside the body. Cancer cells find themselves starving while healthy cells adapt and thrive. For years, we were told that diet had nothing to do with cancer, but anyone who understands the metabolism of cancer knows that glucose is its lifeline. The problem is that modern diets provide an endless stream of glucose all day long. Breakfast cereal, toast, tea with sugar, mid-morning snacks, bread at lunch, pasta or rice at dinner, dessert afterward, and snacks before bed. This type of eating keeps glucose elevated from dawn to night, and cancer cells flourish in that environment. They love the spikes. They love the floods of sugar. They love the chaos that insulin surges create. Meanwhile, healthy cells begin to suffer. The liver becomes overwhelmed, storing excess glucose as fat, and the immune system becomes exhausted trying to keep up. When people finally cut back on sugars, processed carbohydrates, and refined starches, something shifts. Insulin drops, glucose stabilizes. The body begins to burn stored fat instead of relying solely on sugar. This metabolic shift is where the magic begins. Cancer cells cannot easily use fat or ketones for fuel, so they become weakened. They lose their aggressive edge. They stop multiplying at such a rapid rate. The body finally gets the upper hand because it's no longer feeding cancer exactly what it wants. Healthy cells, on the other hand, light up with energy because they adapt beautifully to cleaner fuels. They become more efficient, more stable, and more resilient. Even doctors like Dr. Atkins noticed this pattern decades ago. He watched cancer patients improve when they were taken off high glucose foods. Tumors shrank, symptoms reduced, the patients grew stronger. This wasn't because of some magical supplement, but because glucose, the very thing cancer thrives on, was drastically reduced. When you remove the fuel of a fire, the flames begin to die down. It is the same with cancer cells. Cut off the glucose, and suddenly the body has the chance to fight back. Another piece of the puzzle is inflammation. High carbohydrate diets cause chronic inflammation, and inflammation feeds cancer. When glucose levels rise constantly, insulin follows, and both create an environment where cancer can grow more easily. But when you shift to natural whole foods, when you stop overwhelming the liver with sugar, when you strengthen the body with nutrients instead of feeding it empty calories, inflammation drops, the immune system wakes up, the liver begins cleansing properly again, the body becomes a place of healing instead of a place of distress. This is why people feel lighter, clearer, calmer, and more energized when they reduce glucose-heavy foods. The whole internal environment becomes less favorable to cancer growth and more aligned with natural repair. Your body is always trying to protect you, always trying to heal you, but it cannot do that while being drowned in sugar and starch. The moment you remove the lifeline of cancer, glucose, you give your body the opportunity to reclaim its strength. Cancer cells begin to falter, and the body can finally take steps toward balance, recovery, and resilience. Essential foods are the foods your body cannot make on its own, and this simple truth changes the entire way you look at nutrition. The modern diet is filled with foods that are convenient, tasty, and addictive, but very few of them are actually essential for life. Your body cannot manufacture essential fatty acids, it cannot manufacture essential amino acids, and it cannot manufacture fiber. These must be supplied from the outside. Yet for decades, people were told to fear butter, fear eggs, fear cream, fear red meat, and fear natural fats, even though these foods contain the very building blocks the body depends on for hormones, brain function, cell repair, and energy stability. Meanwhile, an entire generation grew up consuming low-fat yogurts, sugar-loaded cereals, margarine spreads, processed breads, and snacks that provided plenty of calories but no true nourishment. The body can manufacture its own glucose. It cannot manufacture omega-3 or omega-6 fatty acids. It can convert proteins into glucose. If needed, it cannot synthesize the complete proteins it needs for tissue repair. This is why essential foods matter so deeply. They support the fundamental architecture of life. Fiber is another essential component most people overlook. When food enters the digestive tract without adequate fiber, it moves slowly, ferments, creates bloating, contributes to constipation, and allows toxins to linger inside the gut. Fiber sweeps, absorbs, binds, and clears waste. It nourishes the gut microbiome, stabilizes blood sugar, reduces inflammation, and helps toxins exit the body. Nature put fiber in nearly all real foods, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes. Yet modern diets are out on white bread, white rice, refined flour, sugary snacks, and ultra-processed meals stripped of fiber. Without fiber, digestion becomes sluggish and the liver becomes overburdened because more toxins and waste products end up back in the bloodstream. This forces the liver to work twice as hard, filtering what should have been eliminated through the gut.
People don't tell us that headaches, fatigue, brain fog, and skin issues often come from a gut that isn't being swept clean. When you bring back fiber, everything begins to move then, and the liver finally gets relief. Nutrients are also concentrated in the parts of food many people throw away. Think of potatoes. The richest nutrients are just under the skin, yet countless households peel them and throw away the very portion that contains minerals and antioxidants. When Jamie Oliver encouraged people to leave the skins on their potatoes, he wasn't just speaking as a chef, but indirectly supporting their nutrient intake. Nature packages nutrition perfectly. When we refine foods, strip them, bleach them, or process them, we remove the essential components the body desperately needs and end up consuming empty calories that burden the liver and spike blood sugar but of nothing in return. Essential foods are the opposite of this. They stabilize insulin, they support the pancreas, they nourish the liver, they fuel the cells without overwhelming them. Healthy fats help the gallbladder release bile, proteins repair tissues and balance hormones, fiber keeps digestion moving, and natural whole foods deliver the vitamins and minerals needed for every metabolic pathway. When you return to essential foods, you calm inflammation, normalize cholesterol, steady your energy, and reduce cravings because your body finally receives what it has been missing for years. It is not willpower that gives people health. It is nourishment.
And said, okay, we'll give you 10 days. And I reckon that's a really good test. Let's just try it. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, the Bible says, prove all things. That's a challenge. Prove all things and hold fast. And the entire system returns to a rhythm that feels natural, steady, and deeply energizing. The skin of a potato holds more nutrition than most people realize, and this simple detail reveals a much bigger truth about how modern eating habits have unintentionally stripped away the very nutrients our bodies depend on. Just under the potato thin outer layer lies a dense concentration of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fiber. When people peel their potatoes, they remove the most nourishing part without even thinking about it. This isn't just about potatoes, it's a reflection of a broader pattern. We've been conditioned to refine, bleach, polish, and process our foods until they look cleaner and more uniform. But in the process, we've thrown away essential nutrition. Nature places nutrients where the body can access them easily. When a potato grows underground, it stores protective compounds in the skin to defend itself from pests and environmental stress, and those compounds also protect us when we eat them. Yet so many kitchens discard them without a second thought. When people leave the skins on their potatoes, they immediately increase their intake of minerals, potassium, magnesium, iron, and even trace antioxidants that help reduce inflammation in the body. Fiber is highest in the skin as well, and that fiber helps regulate digestion, stabilize blood sugar, and feed the beneficial bacteria in the gut. Without fiber, digestion slows, toxins accumulate, and the liver becomes overburdened as more waste is pushed back into circulation. Many people don't realize their bloating, sluggishness, and constant cravings are symptoms of a gut that isn't being cleared properly. A simple food like a potato with the skin left on can make a meaningful difference in how the entire digestive system operates. Jamie Oliver movement encouraging people to stop peeling potatoes was not just culinary advice, it was a gentle push toward reclaiming whole food nutrition. When you eat a potato with its skin, you get a stable, slow-burning source of carbohydrates paired with fiber, minerals, and antioxidants. When you peel it, you're left with a food that digests more quickly, spikes blood sugar faster, and places more pressure on the pancreas and liver. That is the tour of so much of modern food. Take something whole and nourishing, remove the parts that stabilize it, and you're left with something that burdens the metabolism instead of supporting it. When people start eating foods in their whole natural form again, their bodies respond almost immediately. There is also something profoundly grounding about eating food the way nature intended. When you keep the potato skin, you're eating closer to the earth, closer to the way humans have eaten for generations.
It reminds your body of the rhythms it was designed for. Foods rich in fiber, foods slowly digested, foods packed with minerals that replenish rather than deplete. The skin doesn't just add nutrition, it slows down glucose absorption, which is crucial for people dealing with fatty liver or insulin resistance. Without the skin, the glucose hits the bloodstream far more quickly, and the liver must handle that surge. With the skin, the glucose drip feeds into the blood, allowing the liver to keep up. As people shift back toward whole foods, whether it's eating the potato with the skin, choosing whole fruits instead of juices, or selecting vegetables in their natural state, they begin feeling the difference. Energy becomes more stable, cravings diminish, digestion feels lighter and smoother, the liver gets relief, The body begins functioning with less strain and more harmony. Something as humble as a potato skin becomes a reminder that nature always provides what we need. And when we stop removing the parts meant to nourish us, our bodies respond with a quiet, steady return to balance. Dandelion is one of the most underrated herbs in the world, yet it holds a power that most people never discover because they see it as nothing more than a weed. But what looks like a nuisance in the garden is actually one of the greatest gifts nature offers for healing the liver. When you taste dandelion, the bitterness hits immediately, and that bitterness is what makes it so therapeutic.
Bitter herbs stimulate the liver. Nothing else can. The moment that bitter taste touches your tongue, the liver begins releasing digestive enzymes. The gallbladder begins releasing bile, and the entire digestive tract wakes up. It is as if the body recognizes the signal detoxification needs to begin. Most modern diets contain almost no bitter foods, and without bitters, the liver becomes sluggish, bile becomes thick, and detox pathways slow down. Dandelion steps in like a spark, reigniting a system that has been neglected for years. What makes dandelion so special is that it targets every function the liver depends on: bile production, digestion, detoxification, and regeneration. Bile is absolutely essential for breaking down fats, and without enough bile, fat begins accumulating in the liver, contributing to fatty liver disease. When dandelion stimulates bile flow, it helps the liver break down stored fats and flush out toxins that have been sitting stagnant. People often don't realize that sluggish digestion, gas, bloating, heartburn, and even headaches can be traced back to a liver that isn't releasing bile properly. The gentle bitter action of dandelion restores this flow, allowing the liver to finally do the job it was designed to do. Dandelion doesn't only support liver function, it supports liver healing. The liver is the only organ in the body that can fully regenerate, and it regenerates best when supported by herbs that encourage circulation, detoxification, and nutrient delivery. Dandelion leaf cleans and stimulates, while dandelion root strengthens and rebuilds. This dual action makes it one of the most complete liver healing herbs available. In traditional herbal medicine, dandelion was always used for liver problems, skin issues, digestive discomfort, and even hormonal imbalance, because all of these conditions trace back to sluggish detoxification. When the liver isn't clearing hormones properly, they recirculate and create symptoms ranging from fatigue to mood swings. When it isn't clearing toxins, the skin becomes the backup detox organ. A simple herb bit dandelion can create profound change by restoring balance at the liver level. The beauty of dandelion is that it can be consumed in many enjoyable ways. Fresh leaves can be added to salads, where their bitterness is softened by other greens and dressed with olive oil and lemon. You can chop them into a warm potato salad, where the heat and oil mellow the bitterness and turn the dish into a deeply nourishing meal. The roasted root can be brewed into a rich, earthy tea that tastes surprisingly similar to coffee without the acidity or caffeine. Many people who dislike herbal teas are pleasantly shocked by how delicious roasted dandelion blends can be, especially when paired with warming spices like cinnamon, cardamom, and ginger. A cup of dandelion tea in the morning gently nudges the liver awake and sets the body up for better digestion all day long. The more you incorporate dandelion into your life, the more you feel its effects. Digestion becomes lighter, bloated meals disappear, energy becomes more stable, skin starts to clear. People who once felt weighed down by their meals suddenly feel cleaner and calmer after eating. That is the power of a herb that targets the liver directly, and because the liver influences every other organ, hormones, digestion, skin, metabolism, immunity, supporting it with dandelion creates a ripple effect of healing throughout the entire body. It is a humble plant, but it holds ancient wisdom, reminding us that healing does not always come from something complex or expensive. Sometimes it comes from a simple bitter leaf, grown quietly in the garden, waiting to restore the organ that carries the greatest burden in the human body. The liver is one of the most extraordinary organs in the human body because, unlike the heart, the kidneys, or the brain, it has the built-in ability to regrow and repair itself even after years of stress, overload, and damage. This is why someone can receive a liver transplant using only a small portion of a donor liver, and within months that small piece grows into a full functioning organ. That level of regeneration is unique. It shows us that the liver was designed with the expectation that it would wade hardship, toxins, dietary mistakes, and environmental stress, yet still find its way back to health when given the right conditions. Many people walk around believing their liver is permanently damaged or that their fatty liver diagnosis is a life sentence, but the truth is far more hopeful. The liver wants to heal. It is always trying to heal, even while we unknowingly burden it with sugar, processed foods, alcohol, chemicals, and medications. The moment we remove some of the daily load, the liver begins repairing almost instantly. The tragedy is that people often abuse the liver without realizing it. Not intentionally, but through ignorance and misinformation. They consume sugar-heavy foods, thinking they are harmless. They snack all day because it feels normal. They rely on processed foods because they are convenient. They drink very little water. They take medications without supporting their detox pathways. Over time, the liver becomes congested with fat, thickened bile, and toxins that cannot be processed efficiently. Yet it doesn't complain. It doesn't send sharp signals or dramatic warnings. It simply keeps working until it cannot keep up. Fatigue sets in. Hormones become imbalanced. Digestion slows. Skin issues appear. Weight gathers as the belly. These are the whispers of a liver that has been pushed too far. But then, even in the midst of sluggish detox and fatty buildup, the liver retains the ability to turn everything around if we begin supporting it. People are often amazed at how quickly the liver responds when you change what you feed it. Reduce the carbohydrates and sugars, and the fat stored inside the liver begins to melt away. Add bitter herbs, the dandelion, turmeric, and ginger, and the liver begins producing and releasing bile more efficiently. Drink warm lemon water in the morning and the liver detox pathways wake up. Increase fiber and hydration, and the toxins begin moving out of the body instead of recycling back into the bloodstream. These simple changes create an environment where the liver can regenerate. It doesn't need complex protocols. It needs breathing room. It needs nourishment. It needs less of the substances that burden it and more of the ones that cleanse and heal. The regenerative ability of the liver is one of the greatest gifts we have been given. God, nature, or creation, whichever word you use, designed this organ with remarkable mercy. If the liver did not have this ability to regrade, many of us would live past childhood, let alone into our 40s, 50s, or 60s. The modern world would have destroyed us long ago, but because the liver can recover, people who have mistreated their bodies for decades can still turn their health out. When the liver heals, everything heals a little. Digestion becomes smoother, energy rises, the skin clears, the mind bright tint, inflammation diverges, and the body begins functioning with a clarity it hasn't felt in years. This is why supporting the liver is not optional, it is essential, because the liver sits at the crossroads of everything. Detox, hormones, metabolism, digestion, immunity, its healing creates a ripple effect through the entire body. And said, okay, we'll give you 10 days. And I reckon that's a really good test. Let's just try it. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, the Bible says, prove all things. And the most beautiful part is that no matter how far things have gone, no matter how overwhelmed or burdened the liver has become, the moment you begin supporting it, it starts repairing. Quietly, steadily, faithfully. It was designed to come back from damage, and if you give it the chance, it will. Dandelion is not just a herb, it is one of nature's most profound gifts for healing the liver, and most people never res its power because they only seen it as a weed growing between cracks in the pavement or scattered across their backyard. Yet this humble plant has been used for centuries in traditional medicine to cleanse, restore, and rebuild the liver. Its bitterness is its magic. Modern diets have eliminated nearly all bitter foods, and without bitterness the liver becomes sluggish, bile becomes thick, digestion slows, and toxins accumulate. When you taste dandelion, your body immediately recognizes the bitter compounds and responds with a series of reactions that open detox pathways, stimulate bile flow, and wake up a digestive system that has been asleep for years. That simple bitter taste is the signal the liver has been waiting for in a world dominated by sweet, salty, bland, and processed foods. Dandelion also supports the liver in a way few herbs do because it doesn't just stimulate, it actively nourishes. The leaf acts as a gentle diuretic and detoxifier, helping the body flush out excess fluid, waste, and toxins that have been lingering too long. The root goes deeper, targeting the liver directly by supporting bile production, improving fat digestion, and helping the liver process and eliminate harmful substances. When the liver becomes congested with fat, as happens in fatty liver disease. Dandelion root helps break down that fat and move it out of the liver so the organ can return to its natural rhythm. Many people don't realize that symptoms as bloating, gas, headaches, skin breakouts, brain fog, and hormonal imbalance are directly connected to a liver that isn't clearing toxins properly. A simple herb, but dandelion, can begin reversing these issues because it restores the liver natural detox cycle. One of the most common questions people ask is how to actually use dandelion in daily life, and the beauty is that it can be incorporated in many delicious and nourishing ways. Fresh dandelion leaves can be sprinkled through salads, where their bitterness is softened by other greens and balanced by olive oil, lemon, and natural seasonings. A warm potato and dandelion salad is a traditional European dish that delivers minerals, fiber, healthy fats, and liver-cleansing compounds in a done bowl. When you chop hot potatoes and mix them with chopped dandelion leaves, olive oil, garlic, and salt, the warmth breaks down the bitterness and creates a dish that is both soothing and deeply healing. But one of the best and most enjoyable ways to consume dandelion is by drinking roasted dandelion root tea. When the root is roasted, it develops rich, warm, earthy flavors that mimic coffee without the caffeine, acidity, or stress that coffee places on the liver. Many people who dislike herbal teas are amazed at how satisfying roasted dandelion tea tastes, especially when blended with spices like cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and cloves. This type of tea supports digestion, stimulates the liver each morning, and helps the body process fats and toxins throughout the day. You can drink it warm, add a little honey, or mix it with milk for a soothing, nourishing drink. Dandelion benefits go beyond digestion and detoxification. Its ability to support bile flow helps regulate cholesterol, balance hormones, and prevent gallstone formation. When bile stagnates, fats build up in the liver and inflammation increases. When bile flows smoothly, the liver becomes lighter, digestion becomes easier, and energy becomes more stable. Dandelion also contains minerals such as potassium, iron, and magnesium, which support the nervous system, blood pressure, and overall vitality. These nutrients are especially important for people suffering from fatigue, sluggish digestion, or chronic stress conditions that often accompany liver dysfunction. Perhaps the most beautiful part of working with dandelion is how quickly the body responds. People often report feeling lighter after meals, less bloated, more energized, and more mentally clear after just a few days of using the herb. Skin begins to brighten because toxins are no longer being pushed out through the pores. Digestion becomes smoother because bile is flowing properly again. Hunger and cravings settle because blood sugar stabilizes when the liver is functioning correctly. When the liver heals, the whole body follows, and dandelion is one of the most powerful natural tools for initiating that healing. This herb reminds us that powerful medicine doesn't always come from exotic places or expensive supplements. Sometimes it grows right outside our door, disguised as a simple weed. When you start using dandelion, whether in salads, teas, or warm, nourishing dishes, you're giving your liver exactly what it needs to repair, regenerate, and return to the vibrant organ it was designed to be. Lemon is one of the simplest, most accessible, and most powerful liver tonics you can use, yet most people overlook it because they think of it as nothing more than a sour fruit used in salads or squeezed over fish. But the lemon carries an intelligence that the body responds to immediately. Yes, it is acidic in your mouth, but once it is broken down in the digestive tract, the minerals within the lemon, potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium, and even iron enter the bloodstream and have an alkalizing effect on the tissues. This is why lemon is one of the most effective natural tools for balancing pH inside the body, supporting detoxification, and waking up the liver each morning. When people begin their day with warm lemon water, they often feel a lightness in their digestion, a clarity in their mind, and a gentle sense of detox happening throughout the day. That is the liver responding to the stimulation it has been craving for years. Most people don't realize that the liver loves acids that come from natural foods like lemon. These acids help stimulate bile production, and bile is absolutely crucial for breaking down fats, digesting food properly, and carrying toxins out of the liver. When bile becomes thick or sluggish from years of eating refined carbohydrates, processed foods, and sugary snacks, digestion slows down and toxins accumulate. A simple warm lemon drink begins thinning the bile and helping it flow more freely. This alone can reduce bloating, heartburn, sluggish digestion, and the heavy feeling people often experience after meals. And because bile is the liver's major fat emulsifying tool, improving bile flow is one of the fastest ways to help reverse fatty liver. Drinking lemon water in the morning also gives the liver a gentle flush. After a long night of fasting, the liver has been processing nutrients, filtering the blood, breaking down hormones, and handling toxins from the previous day. Lemon signals the liver to release waste and send it into the digestive tract for elimination. Many people notice their complexion brightening, their skin clearing, and their digestion becoming more regular simply because the liver is clearing toxins rather than recycling them into the bloodstream.
A congested liver affects everything: energy, mood, blood sugar, hormones, and even sleep. Lemon helps open the pathways again. Lemon also hydrates the body more effectively than plain water. Its natural minerals improve absorption, making it easier for cells to take in the water they need. This is crucial because dehydration alone can make bile thicker, digestion slower, and the liver more burdened. When the liver doesn't have enough hydration, it struggles to break down fats and toxins efficiently. Lemon water supports hydration and mineral balance, both of which lighten the liver workload. What surprises many people is that lemon is also considered a liver herb. Herbalists throughout history have used lemon not just as food, but as medicine for detox, digestion, and liver repair. It works alongside other liver-supportive herbs like dandelion, turmeric, and ginger, enhancing their effects by helping the liver process and release toxins more effectively. But lemon is inexpensive, widely available, and gentle on the body. It's one of the easiest daily practices anyone can adopt for liver health. When people start drinking warm lemon water each morning, they often sense a shift. Meals feel lighter, energy becomes more steady, and they experience fewer cravings throughout the day. That is the liver functioning more efficiently. Lemon doesn't heal the liver on its own, but it creates the ideal conditions for the liver to heal itself.
Breaks up digestion, supports bile flow, helps alkalize the tissues, and gives the liver the gentle push it needs to begin operating at its full potential again.
Ginger is one of those remarkable gifts from nature that works in so many ways at once that people often underestimate its power. Most know it as the remedy for nausea or an upset stomach, but ginger goes far beyond calming the digestive system. When it comes to liver health, especially fatty liver, ginger plays a role that is gentle yet profoundly effective. The warming compounds in ginger, gingerols, and sugarols stimulate circulation, reduce inflammation, and encourage the liver to release stagnant bile. Bile is essential for processing fats, and when bile becomes thick or sluggish, fat begins to accumulate in the liver. A simple cup of ginger tea can nudge the bile to flow again, allowing the liver to break down fats more efficiently. This makes ginger a quiet but powerful ally for anyone trying to reverse fatty liver. Ginger also warms the entire digestive tract, which is something we don't talk about enough. When someone has a cold, stagnant, or slow digestion, food sits too long in the stomach and intestines, creating gas, bloating, heaviness, and fermentation. This puts extra stress on the liver because more toxins from poorly digested food end up back in the bloodstream. Ginger stimulates digestive enzymes, increases stomach acid production, and helps food move smoothly through the gut.
When digestion improves, the liver finally gets a break, but it no longer has to compensate for what the gut didn't finish. Many people are shocked that something as simple as ginger tea can reduce their bloating, lighten their meals, and give them more energy after eating. But this is the liver and digestive system working in harmony again. Inflammation is another key area where ginger shines. Fatty liver isn't just a buildup of fat, it's inflammation inside the liver cells. Every time the liver becomes overburdened with sugar, processed foods, toxins, and medications, it responds with inflammation. Ginger natural anti-inflammatory compounds help calm this internal fire. A body that is inflamed struggles to burn fat, regulate hormones, digest food, and detox properly. By lowering inflammation, ginger creates the internal environment where the liver can begin healing. This is why people with fatty liver often experience less abdominal discomfort and more clarity and lightness when ginger becomes a regular part of their routine. Ginger also improves circulation, which is essential for any healing process. The liver relies on a strong, steady blood flow to filter toxins, process nutrients, and repair damaged cells. When circulation is weak or sluggish, toxins accumulate and the liver struggles. Ginger warms the blood, dilates the vessels slightly, and increases the flow of oxygen and nutrients to the liver. This simple increase in circulation encourages detoxification and regeneration, helping break the cycle of congestion that fatty liver creates. One of the most effective ways to use ginger is as a tea. Grate a teaspoon of fresh ginger, pour boiling water over it, and let it steep for 10 minutes. The aroma alone tells the body that something healing is coming. If the tea is too strong, it can be diluted, but many people find that they begin craving the warmth and comfort it brings. Ginger tea is also wonderful for those moments when the body is chilled or run down, because warming the body internally helps stimulate metabolic function. People who use ginger consistently often notice improvements in digestion, less bloating after meals, reduced sugar cravings, smoother bowel movements, and a general feeling of warmth and vitality. All of these improvements are signs that the liver is functioning better. A well-functioning liver creates stable energy, clearer skin, calmer moods, and deeper sleep. Ginger doesn't force the liver to heal. It supports, encourages, and activates the pathways the liver already wants to use. It simply gives the liver the conditions it needs to begin taking care of the body the way it naturally knows how. In a world full of complicated diets and expensive supplements, ginger stands out as a reminder that some of the most powerful healing tools are simple, ancient, and affordable.
Liverroot warm cleanses, stimulates and revitalizes the liver in a way that is nourishing rather than overwhelming, making it one of the best daily companions for anyone seeking to reverse fatty liver or simply restore balance to their digestive system. Turmeric is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory herbs on the planet, yet most people see it as nothing more than a yellow spice used in cooking. They sprinkle a little on their curry and never remember that inside this humble root lies a compound so potent, so restorative, and so deeply healing that it can transform the internal environment of the liver in a matter of days. The active ingredient in turmeric, called curcumin, works at the cellular level to calm inflammation, repair damaged tissue, and neutralize oxidative stress. And because fatty liver is fundamentally an inflammatory condition where liver cells are swollen, stressed, and congested with fat, turmeric becomes one of the most important herbs you can use to begin reversing that damage from the inside out. When the liver is overloaded with sugar, processed foods, toxins, medications, and environmental chemicals, inflammation begins to rise. Inflamed liver cells cannot process fats properly. The mitochondria inside them slow down. Detoxification pathways become congested. Bile thick kit, hormones recirculate instead of being cleared. A person might feel tired, heavy, bloated, irritable, foggy, or constantly hungry without being told that these symptoms are the whisper of an inflamed liver. Turmeric steps into this situation like a fire extinguisher, calming the internal inflammation that keeps the liver locked in survival mode. When that inflammation decreases, the liver can finally begin breaking down the fat set inside it, pushing toxins out through bile, and repairing the damaged areas that have been ignored for far too long. Turmeric also supports digestion, and digestion is deeply intertwined with liver health. When food doesn't break down properly, it ferments in the gut, creating gas, bloating, and toxins that get reabsorbed into the bloodstream. These toxins go straight to the liver, forcing it to work twice as hard. Turmeric stimulates digestive enzymes and supports the gallbladder in releasing bile, which helps fats move smoothly through the digestive tract. This reduces the liver burden and allows it to redirect its energy toward repair. Many people who start taking turmeric notice that their meals feel lighter, that they digest food more comfortably, and that heaviness after eating disappears. This is the liver and digestive system cooperating instead of battling each other. Curcumin also protects the liver from oxidative stress. Every day, the liver is exposed to harmful molecules called free radicals, byproducts of metabolism, toxins from the environment, preservatives in food, and residues from medications. These free radicals damage liver cells, accelerate aging, and increase inflammation. Turmeric neutralizes these free radicals before they can injure the liver. This antioxidant action is one of the reasons turmeric has been studied so extensively for its ability to reduce the risk of long-term liver disease. When oxidative stress is lowered, the liver regeneration process becomes faster and more efficient. Another powerful benefit of turmeric is its ability to improve insulin sensitivity. Because fatty liver and insulin resistance go hand in hand, anything that helps balance insulin levels also helps heal the liver.
Curcumin makes cells more responsive to insulin, lowers blood sugar fluctuations, and reduces the constant insulin surges that contribute to fat storage. When insulin levels stabilize, the liver stops converting excess glucose into fat, and the existing fat stored in the liver begins to break down. This is why people often feel calmer, steadier, and more in control of their appetite when turmeric becomes a regular part of their routine. Turmeric is most effective when consumed consistently, and one of the easiest ways to do that is through tea. Simply boil water, add a teaspoon of turmeric, and include a pinch of black pepper to enhance absorption. You can drink it warm, add lemon, or mix it into soups and broths. Fresh turmeric can be grated and used the same way, though you'll need about 3 times the amount because fresh root is milder. The warmth of turmeric tea relaxes the digestive tract, soothes inflammation, and sends a gentle message to the liver that healing can begin now. People who incorporate turmeric daily often notice improvements that ripple through the entire body. Their digestion becomes smoother, their energy steadier, their skin brighter, their bloating reduced, and their mental clarity stronger. These are signs of a liver that is finally functioning the way it was designed to. A healthy liver creates a healthy body because the liver influences everything: hormones, metabolism, immunity, digestion, detoxification, and emotional balance. Turmeric does not force the liver to heal, it supports it. It creates an internal environment where healing becomes possible. It calms the inflammation that blocks detoxification. It breaks down the fat that weighs the liver down. It protects the liver from oxidative damage. It stabilizes blood sugar and reduces insulin stress. And perhaps most importantly, it gives the liver time to regenerate, time to repair, and time to recover from years of being overloaded. In a world full of complicated treatments and expensive supplements, turmeric stands out as a simple, natural, affordable herb that reconnects us with the body's built-in ability to heal. When you use turmeric consistently, you are not just adding a spice to your routine, you are giving your liver one of the most powerful tools nature created to restore balance, vitality, and health.